about something very important. Hello world, this is Edward Bevilacqua from Casa Grande, and we are doing a employment planning workshop today, and it's going to be stored on YouTube so that people here can go back and review it because it's very fundamental to what we do. And this is also for the people up in Reno, because our program in Reno is a 4-week program. This is week number 4, and then our job is to help them get employment. The employment planning workshop is for career stuff. It's really designed for career, not for pay the bills type of jobs. However, most people are not really able to get a good career, aren't really ready in a position to start a career. So does anybody here think they're ready for a career? Dave? Career?
Career. Yes.
Okay. Doing what?
Personal trainer.
Okay. So you have your licenses and all that?
I have all that.
Okay,
I
cool.
work at the gym and now I'm just trying to get mom.
Okay. And so that is a career for you. You're passionate about it. You want to do it.
Right.
Okay, cool. Good. So, so our employment planning workshop, what's different about it? Andre, you've gone through this before, than normal.
What's different about it?
Yeah, what's the key part that's different?
That's a good question. There's a lot of key parts.
Okay. But the fundamental thing is most jobs, most people doing job search, it's what?
That you don't go looking to see who's hiring.
Okay, so they're reactive, right?
Right.
So here, when you're here and you start, and it is a turning point, you have a lot of pressure to get a job, right? And so it's reactive. So what's reactive, Rudy?
Reactive is reacting to them they're looking for us, so now we're reacting to their.
Perfect, excellent. So they're saying we're hiring people, and they throw the bait out in the water, and everybody who wants a job is like a little fish swimming to the bait, right? And then you've got to fight for it to get the job. That's reactive. That's what people do here. Now, why do most people do reactive?
It's simpler to go out. They already know that they're looking.
Okay.
Know where to go find a job.
That's all they know. Perfect. Why is it all they know? Okay, but why? Starting where? Day one of your life?
Yeah, like once you start looking for a job.
Well, I think it starts before you're looking for a job. I think for most people, it starts growing up.
Right.
That your dad or mother had jobs that was work. You know, what's a job? What does that stand for? Just over broke. Okay. So most people grow up in houses where the dad comes home and he's pissed off because work sucks.
Right.
And he doesn't really like to do it. So that's your default setting, right? If all you know is your dad goes to work, he's gone for most of the day, he comes home and he's pissed off, what does that mean to a little kid regarding work? Work sucks.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, but think about it for a second, just bracket for a second on really successful people, like let's say Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Nolan Bushnell. What do you think they think?
Enjoy it.
The opposite.
Right.
They think the opposite. They don't do stuff because it sucks. Maybe they did when they were young. So like if I get on the phone with Nolan, used to do this, right? Now you got to do this, right? So if I get on the phone with Nolan, I say, hey, Nolan, how's it going? He'll say, whatever. I'll say, how many jobs do you have now? And he'll chuckle and he'll say, I don't know, 8, 10. He said, it's really hard to tell because it's hard to tell the difference between work and enjoyment. That's how successful people do it. So that's what we want to do here. That's the foundation of our employment planning workshop. Do what you want to do. So we have a 6-step proactive approach, which I'll talk about in a second. But before that, there's kind of 2 types of acceptable jobs, career and foundation. Okay, so the career is our EPW. What do you think a foundation job is?
Something that builds up to the career that you want.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something that's like a foundation in a house, right? Huh? What?
Or something like that.
Okay, what's a foundation in a house?
Cement slab.
Well, holds it up.
It's the thing that the house is built on. Okay, so so a foundation job is something your career is built on. So what do you want to do for your career, Jimmy?
I'm opening up a clothing store,
Okay, clothing store. So what would you need as a foundation?
business, on that building.
Okay, there's a lot of things that you need if you're going to open a clothing store, right? Well, no, that you personally need in order to be successful at that. Getting a business license isn't going to mean you're going to be successful.
Building a brand.
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff you need to know, right?
Yeah.
So Dave, for you to be a trainer, what's the foundational part of being a trainer?
Certificates, I mean, just knowing, liking, loving to work out.
Well, the basics though, right?
Yeah.
You need to learn the basics, right? Could I decide, okay, I'm a good test taker, I'm going to go take my test to get my license to be a personal trainer, but I've never actually done it before. I've just watched YouTube videos. Let's say I could pass the test. Would I be successful as a personal trainer?
Yeah, you just, after a while, you could.
No,
be.
I'm saying in the beginning.
Oh, no.
Why?
Because you don't know anything about it.
Exactly.
You just read the book.
They've never done it before. So foundation stuff is the basics of doing it. So,
Education and the experience.
well, so let's say, who played sports growing up? Okay, so virtually everybody played sports growing up. So I'm talking about baseball. What's the first thing you learned to do in baseball, would you think?
Catch the ball.
Just throw the ball, bro.
Yeah, you really learn simple basics. I mean, it really kind of comes back to here's how you stand. Okay? In basketball, when John Wooden was the coach at UCLA, what was the starting point?
No.
What's the foundation? What do you think John Wooden, one of the winningest high school basketball coaches of all time? Foundational thing.
Teamwork.
No, that's not a foundational thing.
Practice.
No.
Stretch.
Position.
How do you tie your shoes?
Oh, man.
How do you tie your shoe? Why do you need to know that for basketball? You don't want to.
Well, think about it.
You don't want them to come outside during the game.
Why don't you just use Velcro?
Because they didn't have Velcro. It wasn't invented back then.
That's not the special.
And anyway, yeah, right.
No, we're not that.
Okay.
Senior citizen.
So where our focus this week is really foundational stuff, because the guys in Reno, next week, they have to go get their jobs.
Are you saying jobs or careers or foundation jobs?
They're getting we're focused on foundations because next week they have to go get their job, which would be a foundation job, but not a career.
What if you don't know what you want to do at all?
Okay, good. That's step one. We're going to get to that in a second. So the first thing to get is there's foundational employment and career employment. Most people here, with some exceptions, most people here should be thinking about foundational employment, not career. Okay, so if you're going to stay in the restaurant business, right? Okay, so maybe not career for you. But if you were, you'd be looking for career employment, right?
I'm getting tired of it.
Okay, that's good. That's part of it. If you look about Gordon Ramsay's thing in his career, he went through highs and lows. And if you can't make it through the low, you got to get out of that business. Okay, so in our EPW, we have 6 steps in our proactive thing. Now we're going to do this for about an hour maybe, then we're going to do Mind Up. We're going to go back and do Mind Up. We're going to put this on our Mind Up. How many people have already done that?
Yeah,
Okay, good. Okay. So career, what's step 1 with EPW?
Find your calling.
Okay, so this first step is what do you want to do? So this is Becca's question. What do you want to do? And this is hard for people who grew up, or hard for people, especially those who grew up in an environment where work sucks. Because you never thought about what do I want to do. Okay? So we've got about 3 things to help you figure out what you want to do. So if I say, Becca, do you have any hobbies? Okay, what's a hobby?
I work out.
Okay, working out. What's another hobby you have?
I read.
Okay, what's another hobby? Okay, we can just leave it at those two. Okay, so one thing would be, what do I have as hobbies? Right, because you spend time. In fact, not only do you spend time not getting paid on a hobby, what do you usually do for a hobby, Dave? What do you usually do in your hobby, though? Not for your hobby, but if you have a hobby, not only do you do it for free, you what?
Enjoy it, you love it.
Okay, but what else besides enjoying it, loving it? You spend money on it,
This is
Right?
true. That's true.
okay? By definition, that's what a hobby is. It's something that you spend money on because you love it. You have no expectation of getting paid, right? People who collect butterflies invest money in collecting butterflies or bird watching or whatever they do. It's their hobby. They don't have any expectation of making money. They do it because they love it. So what do you want to do? One thing would be to take your hobby and get a job doing that. Take your hobby and get paid doing it. Okay, so do you have any hobbies, Jimmy?
Yes.
Oakland Raiders?
Denver Broncos.
Okay, is that a hobby?
No.
Do you buy any jerseys or any crap,
Oh, yeah.
stuff?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
okay, so,
Broncos.
okay. So that's a hobby, right? Watching the games is the thing that you do. You probably know guys on the team, know the names of the guys on the team, right? And their stats, and you invest time because you like it. Okay, so one way to figure out what do you want to do is to start with, well, what do I have as hobbies? What are things? Okay, so what do I, and then you can go to the level of, to the point where I actually spend money doing it. Okay,
Lots of money. Most money I spent in prison was on music.
okay. Well, okay, cool. We'll just leave that one on to the side for a second. Now, what's another test we can do, Glenn? Or what do you want to do? I think you talked about before, didn't you say calling or something?
He wants to be a Mormon.
Anybody say calling?
I said, I'm going to like that.
Okay, what's a call? What's our definition of a calling?
Why do I want to do it? Who do I want to become?
No. So for our purposes, a calling is something you like doing so much you do it for free. Okay?
And I'm willing to pay someone to do it.
It's called what? That's a different level. That's even higher level. That's our, what we call a destiny thing, that I like doing it so much, I will pay money to do it. Okay, so you can, to try to narrow it down, because you really want to have one thing here as your career. You can't really pursue multiple careers at the same time. You should just pick one, go with it. Synthetic happiness will kick in, and it's going to work out fine. So hobby, calling, or destiny. This is the most important step in this whole thing. So now let's bracket for a second on Carrie Green. So she took this first question, she broke it down into 3 parts. Anybody remember part 2? Carrie Green. Huh?
Who do I need to become?
That's part 3.
Oh, that's part 3.
Okay, what do you want to do?
Why do you want to do it?
Why do you want to do it? Right. Why do you want to do this? And if you can't answer why, probably should not think of it as your career. Sort of kind of by definition. Yeah, this is what I want to have as a career. Why? I don't know. Well, you probably really don't want to do it. It's just something you feel like right now. So what's the example, Andre, for Carrie Green? What's she talk about? What's her story?
She talked about when she had an epiphany. She went to college, right? When
She's going to law school.
she opened she had a successful business in coding for phones.
Unlocking phones.
Unlocking, yeah, she wasn't happy with it.
Yeah. So what did she want to do? She wanted to own her own business, right? But she didn't focus on the why part.
Right.
So she owned a business. The business was successful. And how was she? Miserable, right? She was miserable. Okay. What's her third part?
Who I need to become.
Yeah. Who do you need to become to do this? So like when Dave said trainer, right? What was my first question after that? Follow up. Do you have your licenses and stuff? Because that would be, well, who do you need to become to be a personal trainer? Somebody has, for one thing, somebody has licenses, right? Okay, I think in this state, right?
Yeah.
Do you have to have a license? Okay,
Get that certification.
so who do you need to become in order to do that? Well, you need to be somebody who has a license. Okay, so for Jimmy, for you owning a clothing store, who do you need to become to be somebody who's successful owning a clothing store?
Well, first, you got to have passion for it. But I'm
Okay, that's kind of question number one, what? That's kind of the what and why. I'm asking you the who question. Who do you need to be successful in the clothing store business? What do you need to know?
You know about clothing.
I need to know what I'm selling, what I want to sell. And, all right.
Well, I think the first answer would be what?
Yeah, passion.
No, passion is not accurate.
What's in market? Like,
What do you need to know to be successful in the clothing store business?
Be friends with Ralph Lauren.
No,
Having a clothes to sell.
you need to know business,
Right.
okay? You need to know this general category of business. There's a lot of guys that say, I want to own my own restaurant. Why? What do they typically say?
Because they want to be the boss.
No, they don't
Money.
usually say,
Money.
yeah, I like to cook food, I like to eat. That's not a good reason to want to own a restaurant. Those are bad reasons to own a restaurant,
Horrible reasons.
okay? Those are not good reasons to own a restaurant. Who do you need to be successful in the restaurant business?
You need
Somebody who
money.
knows business. And business has sales and marketing, operations, administration, finance, accounting. There's a whole bunch of
Licenses.
stuff that's part of business that you need to know. And you're not really, the probability of being successful drops dramatically based upon how much business you don't know. Okay? Now, there's a lot of people that were not really that smart, like Henry Ford. And what was his attitude, though?
pay the people that he needs.
Yeah, I know I don't know accounting,
Right.
but I went and hired a guy who's the best accounting guy I could afford. He knows accounting. And I hired this guy who's an attorney, and I listen to what they tell me.
That's the way to go.
I let them do their job.
That's the
Huh?
way to go.
He nudged them forward because a lot of stuff they didn't believe that they could do it. He just gave them the motivation. You can do it.
Yeah, okay, good. And so what about Walt Disney?
He was a Nazi.
No, he wasn't a Nazi.
That's what
Okay.
I heard.
Don't
That's
spread
all I know about
rumors.
him. And he likes
Mickey Mouse
Disney.
when it went flop.
He
That's the
is
only
Disney.
thing You know about him?
Yeah.
Huh?
He's Mickey Mouse when it flopped, or he tried to.
In business, he was a failure.
Yeah, he
What was he
was.
good at? What did he have a passion for? Yeah, drawing. He had a passion for that. But he failed like twice. And then what did he do?
Hire people in business.
His brother Roy. And that was everything, that was Roy's problem. But because they were brothers, Roy couldn't, and that was in the days that you're stuck with them.
Right.
Okay, I can't quit. And so Roy is the guy who had a heart attack and died from the stress. No, I'm just kidding. But he threatened to quit.
It probably happened.
Yeah, could have been. But he threatened to quit because Walt would just not listen. Hey, we can't do that. We can't afford to do that. We can't hire more people. We can't do this. We can't do that. And Walt would basically say, Roy, you'll figure it out. You got to do it, Roy. We got to do this. So the fundamental thing is if you want to have your own business, you have to know business. Okay. Then the other stuff falls in place. So Terry Green, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Who do you need to become to do that? Okay, that's our first step. And that's the hardest step. You got to think of what am I passionate about? What would I be willing to keep doing if I worked for a company and they didn't have any money? What did Simon Sinek say about this? If you hire people,
They better believe what you believe, because then they'll work for the cause and not the money.
right. He said, if you hire people who believe what you believe, they'll what?
They'll work for blood,
Sweat, and tears. But if you just hire people
for the money.
who want to work for money, they're just going to work for the money.
Or they're gonna leave.
Okay. So when it comes to you in a career, that's a question to ask. You know, how much do I believe in this and do I want to do it? You know, take it to the Simon Sinek level. That's for a career. Okay. So step two, what's step two? Now that we know what we want to do. So Becca, if you had to choose something, what would it be?
Homemaking.
Homemaking. Like construction? What do you mean?
No, I want to be with my kids.
Okay, being a parent. Okay. And what's the outcome you want in your kids?
I want them to be successful.
Okay.
I want them to be happy.
Well, happy or successful?
I want all that. I want them to be smart, healthy, happy, successful, intelligent, capable.
Okay, well, remember, happiness
be like
cannot
me.
be pursued. Happiness cannot be pursued. Why?
Happiness
Lived.
is a result
No,
of
it's lived.
pursuing success and
Okay,
being in person.
So what did Viktor Frankl say? Happiness cannot be pursued. It has to be cultivated. Okay, you cannot
It's a
pursue
choice, I
happiness.
thought. Like, I mean, you just are happy or you're not. You choose to be happy. Like, I'm happy.
Right, but you choose to
Okay.
be happy based on your choices of getting to that point.
So, but being a homemaker, I'm just curious, okay, so how do you make your kids happy?
Play with them. Teach them
Teach them what?
whatever you want. How to clean the house, how to make
Okay.
a castle out of sand, whatever.
Okay, all right, okay. So that would be your career, right? And do you think you might do YouTube videos to share it with the world? Okay, cool. So that would be a thing that you could do. And my hunch is there probably are people who are out there, if you did a Google search on how can I learn to be a good homemaker?
Yeah, that's actually great. I would love to look at those YouTube videos.
Okay, see, there you go. So step two is find businesses that already do what you want to do. So let's say Jimmy wanted to do something, his hobby was the Denver Broncos, and he wanted to do something for the Denver Broncos. Okay, so what would you do?
Make banners and that. Like we mean.
Google. You would Google what?
Oh.
Companies that have something to do with the Denver Broncos. Okay, so like you could be selling merchandise, right? Maybe you could have a little YouTube video like these guys that have stuff on YouTube that's just talking about everything about the Denver Broncos, Denver Bronco channel. Some of the highest paid guys in the world right now, who's PewDiePie? Nobody's ever heard of PewDiePie? He makes like $12 million a year on YouTube.
Wow.
Just doing stupid little YouTube videos. Okay. Yeah.
I'll look him up.
Okay, PEW.
EEW?
Yeah. Okay, so you find 3 to 5 companies who do what you want to do. How do you find them? What's one way, Rudy?
How do you find people that do what you want to do?
Yeah, companies that do what you want to do, that could hire you.
Google.
Everything's on the internet nowadays, so you
Okay.
search it, find it. 3 to 5 employers.
Okay, that's step 2. Find 3 to 5 companies that do what you want to do. So we had somebody, I think she was in here. I said, if you could, what would you want to do for your career? And she said, I would like to hang out at the shopping mall all day. Okay, what did she mean by that? Yeah, just hanging out at the mall. Okay, just walking around with her friends, talking, and going to the food court and doing whatever. That's what she meant by it, literally. And it's okay, great. Well, are there companies that pay people to do that?
Yeah.
Like what?
Probably
Secret shopper.
Secret shopper, what else?
Loss prevention.
Survey.
Loss prevention.
Survey companies.
Survey companies, people for voting stuff. What else? Information booth,
Promotion.
concierge type of stuff. Janitors, right? People sweeping, cleaning up. There's a lot of people who just hang out at the shopping mall all day. And so the goal is to find 3 to 5 people to do it. So what, what?
The Wetzel's Pretzels guy.
Yeah.
Shop them all day.
All cops.
Be that guy.
Frank Bonanno's cookie people in the past.
Oh, yeah.
So find 3 to 5 companies. So how do we find them? What's one way?
Go out and-
Yeah, just Google search. What's another way?
Physically go to places.
No,
I know.
that
You gotta get movement
takes
for
too
all
long.
that.
Ask other people.
Ask other people.
Well, first you would go to Google and do a search, right?
Website.
Okay, and follow up from there. Yeah, you could ask other people. You know anybody that does this?
Word of mouth, I was saying word of mouth.
Okay, same thing. Okay, so once you find it on YouTube, on Google now what would you do? What's another way to research them or to find out more?
Oh, like
Reviews.
or different.
Okay, well, let me go to this level. Step 3, once you have them, step 3 is research. Okay, research. Okay, so how do we do research on the company? What's one way? Google search, what's another way?
Labrador.
Glassdoor,
Indeed.
Indeed,
Website.
LinkedIn.
Website.
It's the one that they can
LinkedIn.
read the reviews. What's the one where you can read the reviews?
Yelp.
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 Okay,
Yeah,
what else?
Business
YouTube,
view.
right? Glassdoor, Wikipedia, if it's a big company,
Oh, yeah, Wikipedia's on my.
okay? Just do research. Now, when you're doing the research, just kind of while you're doing it and documenting the research, what should you do to document the research you're doing?
The mind up.
Well, okay, so you have a mind map. Okay, how do you document the research though? Copy and paste the links, right?
Websites.
Okay, so what's another thing
You can put little notes.
besides mind map?
Oh, you can write it down.
Bookmarks bar.
Spreadsheets.
Put stuff on your bookmarks bar. Create a folder called what? EPW. And then what could you have in the folder?
All the.
All your money.
You could have separate folders for each company.
Each company, yeah.
And then in each company, what do? You just drag the link in for anything that you found of interest, edit, and then, don't say Wikipedia.
Right.
Say, well, you might say Wikipedia, but you might say, like if you're doing it on Zappos, you could have Tony Shea, right? So if I want to know about Tony Shea. So you should use the bookmarks bar, mind map, what else? Okay, maps. Use Google Maps. So if you don't know how to use mind map, you can start by using Google Maps, because what can you add to a Google map?
Little pins,
Okay, what can you put in the pin? Good.
locations.
Your description. You can put
What can you put in the description? Anything. You can put links to a folder in there. A folder that's stored on what?
Google
Your-
Docs.
Your drive, right?
Right.
You can put a link in there. And we are very good at maps, creating maps, which is why this thing mind map is, because it's basically a what? It's a map. It's a mind map. Okay? So, and another thing that we want to add is our calendar. But the calendar comes in over here at step 4. So, okay, so Rudy, so step 3 is research. How much research, Rudy, would you guess?
How much?
Yeah. Like 5
In
minutes?
terms of, no, probably at least, I don't know, depends on how much you want to do it, 2 or 3 hours, maybe more, maybe months worth of research.
Okay, okay.
Until you know more than the person that interviewed.
Yeah, so that's the guide, that's the goal, that's the guide. So Dave, where would be an example of where you might want to be a trainer?
Where's an example? It's the gym I'm gonna work at. It's called
LVAC.
Self-Made.
Okay, so what about LVAC?
No,
Okay, why not?
because I'm working for that company and I only can make so much money. I can't bring in different clients that don't.
You mean LVAC?
Right.
Okay.
Can't bring other clients
So
that
let's
don't
say
produce.
you wanted to work at LVAC and LVAC was one of your companies, and what's the other one called?
Self-Made.
Self-Made. Okay, that's another one. Now, do you think you could know more about LVAC than the people interviewing you?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, why?
Because low-level HR people.
Yeah, because they're busy doing they're busy doing HR stuff, which is mostly low level, right? They don't know.
Big company, they don't have to do one job.
And, maybe they know way back in the past to how it started, just a 30-second little chat of, well, here's how we started. but they probably don't know what the owner did yesterday. So like if it's Zappos, Tony Hsieh used to be traveling all over the country all the time, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago when the downtown project was really popular. He would be here, there, and he was very good at having YouTube videos. Do you think the guy in HR would watch the YouTube video of what Tony Hsieh was doing yesterday? I have no idea. So you have the opportunity to say to HR, why do you want to work here? Blah, 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 blah. I really liked it as a kid, whatever. And I really thought Tony Hsieh's interview in Albuquerque yesterday was really cool. What's going to go through that person's brain when you say
Tony
that?
Hsieh? That's what's going to go through.
They're gonna say, well, what was the interview about?
They're going to be, I didn't know he was in Albuquerque. Yeah, what? And they might ask you a question. And that's called what?
Bonding.
Bonding, right. That's called bonding. Because now they're interested in something you have. And then you get to do what?
Share.
Add value,
Show
Right.
them up.
okay?
Make them look
And
better.
then you need to do what? Ask, okay?
Ask them.
So the basic thing is research them to the point where you know more than the person interviewing. Now, would you be interviewing with the owner of Self-Made?
Yes,
Okay. Could you possibly know more than him?
no.
No. So the smaller the company, the harder it is. If you're going to go work at the Venetian, you wanted a job at the Venetian, not really hard to know more than the person interviewing you.
True.
Okay? And don't just, when it's know more about the company, don't just get locked into thinking about the history of the company. It could be about what's
Current
happening
stats.
right now.
Yeah.
What happened yesterday? What's going to happen 2 weeks from now? Type of thing. Because probably that person doesn't know very much about the company. And you just want to persuade them that you do. Okay, step 4 is what? Plan, yeah, create your plan. 5, execute the plan. And 6,
Get the job until you get to the job you really.
yeah, okay. So I'm gonna put foundational employment here instead of just a job, okay?
feel pain.
So now if your goal, Rudy, is to know more about the company than the person interviewing you, how much time do you need to spend doing research?
Depends on the size of the company.
Yeah, okay, good, right, exactly the right answer, it depends. That's what they teach you to say your second year in law school, is to start every question, every answer to a question with the words, it depends.
It
Okay?
depends on what.
Second year lost.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So it depends, but kind of another guiding thing should be how many weeks, months, years do you want to work there? This is a foundational job now.
Yeah.
Well, no, this is a career job. How long do you want to work at your career? As a homemaker.
Oh, about 18 years, maybe 20.
Okay. So how much time is it reasonable to invest in something that you want to do for 18 years?
Like lifetime, because you'll never know a whole lot about parenting.
Well, to get the job.
I feel like that's real easy.
What's easy? What's
It's
easy?
real easy to get the job of a homemaker.
Yes,
Find the
real
newspaper.
easy.
Well, we're talking about to make money, not to just be it.
Nobody's ever paid me for it. I'm just saying.
But they
Real
could.
easy.
Don't say yourself short, they could. So you should also factor in, when you're doing your research, you should also factor in what's a reasonable amount of time to do research on this company if I want to work there for several years.
A few
Yeah.
weeks, like, I don't know, like, I mean, it could depend, like.
Yeah, it depends.
Because like, like on a Tuesday night after dinner, you're like, oh, I got 10 minutes, I'm gonna look into this. And then you find something you really like, then you wanna spend like, then you're all,
Well, you want to know more about the company than the person interviewing. So how much time should you be willing to spend?
Enough time to find out if you're gonna hate it.
That's not hard though.
You need to know enough to,
You need to know enough
No.
to find out if you're gonna hate it.
Well, let's put it this way. Do you think your chances of getting everything else equal, so that is are ceteris paribus.
Consider it
Latin, it's Latin, just to
Just a little
to
bit.
get
Are you
your,
certain that you're gonna love
No, a
it?
little bit.
everything else equal, okay? So if everything is equal, so Jimmy, if everything else is equal, do you think a person that knows more about the employer than the person interviewing them, is their probability of getting the job higher than a person who doesn't know more? Why not?
Yes.
No.
Depends on how insecure the interviewer is.
Everything else is equal.
Depends if the power post or not.
Okay.
You know, then of course,
So,
Yes.
If everything else is equal, the more
Yes.
you know about the company, the higher the probability you're gonna get the job.
Is that what that means?
Ceteris paribus means everything else equal.
Oh,
Everything else, anything positive is going to give you a better result or something.
Okay? Okay, so research is the key. And research is the key because when we get to stage 4, we're flipping over into what we did last week, which is what?
The news.
Outside
Outside
skill size kingdom. Okay, so when we get to the plan, this is fundamentally an outside the school, our school size kingdom thing. So what's the status quo I want to change?
Having a job, having a career.
Yeah, I don't work there. That's the status quo. I want to change that, right?
Yep.
Okay, so what did Seth Godin say I need to do now?
You need to nudge your child forward.
No, yeah, well,
We need to know our time.
what's that? Okay, so David Logan said 2 things, right? If you want to be successful, one way to be successful is what?
I'll create our own.
Join a tribe,
And then nudge it forward.
okay, then nudge it forward.
Or start a tribe.
Well, he wasn't talking about that, but yeah.
Chandler.
So for Logan, it was join a tribe, nudge it forward. Okay? So you decide you want to go get a job for somebody. Would that be joining a tribe?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And it could be a sub-tribe in the tribe, depending upon what department you're in. So now we get to, okay, great. So I want to join the tribe. I want to nudge it forward. How do I do that?
By finding out
So
that you
Seth
don't
Godin.
work there and getting a job there.
Huh? Seth Godin, what's step 2?
Tell a story.
Tell a story. The interview is fundamentally telling them a story. About what?
You,
About themselves. You
Right.
know something that they do.
About why what?
why I wanna work there.
Why they should change the status quo, which is what?
Work
Yeah,
behind
right.
me.
Which is why they should take you from not working there to working there. This is just basic Seth Godin stuff. They tell a story. Okay, cool. But then Simon Sinek's, so when you get done with Seth Godin, you say, okay, cool. Now I know how to nudge them. I got to find something to change. I don't work there. Tell a story, connect the true believer. Okay, but the challenge with Seth Godin was what? How do I tell
How do you tell the
a
story?
compelling story? How do I tell a compelling story? So then we went to who? No, before Phillips. Simon Sinek. And what does he tell us?
We're better storytellers than we think.
He tells us what? Yeah, and the how to tell a story is basically what?
Why?
Why what?
Start with why.
to change the
Because
Why we need to change the status quo. And what's the status quo?
not working.
I don't work there, okay? Why we need to change it? Okay, so what are they looking for?
Hard workers.
No.
Save you money, make you money.
Yeah, they're looking for people to save them money or make them money. Now, you might have to be a hard worker to do that. But I'll tell you one thing, when you get to the really high levels of people, guys that make $1 million a year, their thing is, I work 3 hours a day and I go balls to the wall for 3 hours. And I don't do personal stuff. I don't take my clothes to the laundry. I don't think about taking my clothes to the laundry. I am just focused for 3 hours on this. And I am going to be unstoppable. Versus most people say, well, I'm going to be here for 8 hours, so I don't really need to push it right now because I can just just take my time and work at it. But people who sell jet airplanes and stuff like that, this is balls to the wall. They just want to go 3 hours a day and just hyper focus to the point where nothing is going to stop them. Okay. So the plan is the story. And the story has to start with something they're interested in to get their attention. To bond with them is, how are you going to make us money? Or what's the foundation of your story? I'm going to make you more money than anyone else. But ultimately, so it starts at that, starts with money, and it ends with, do we like you? Okay, because you could be somebody that makes some money, but they don't like you and they're not going to want to work with you, and you probably won't get the job because they're going to find somebody who can make them just as much money, almost as much money, but they actually like. And so if we go back to David Logan, what did he say about Zappos? What kind of people do they look for?
Weird.
Crazy.
People who are a little bit weird. Not weird, just a little weird. Okay? People who are a little bit
I
weird.
feel like I'm a shoo-in for that job.
So they have to like you. But you have to do this. Now, what's in between those two things?
Everyone else.
No. What is the thing that you bring to the table between these two?
Added value.
Attitude. Okay. Do you really want to work here? Or is this just a stop on the road? Or, you just want a job? You don't really care about us. You just want a job. Now, ideally, they want somebody who's going to make them money, number one, somebody they like, and somebody who really wants to work for them. This is now, when we're here at the plan, creating the plan, this is Seth Godin, Simon Sinek, and then what? David Phillips, to get them predisposed to your story. And an ideal story would be like when I was, some kind of introduction to the company, some kind of segue that there's some kind of connection. So if it was at, say you wanted to work at Zappos, and now you're doing the David Phillips story before the story, which is for the purpose of what? Bonding, okay? So you might say, you're in the beginning of the interview, you want to bond with them, and you could have the story about what? That would relate to Zappos.
Shoes.
Yeah, some kind of crazy shoe thing when you were 2 years old. Or, I started liking shoes because, when I went to kindergarten, I got my first pair of rain boots and I couldn't tell which one went on which foot. And just some kind of story that people can relate to, because most people, when they're really young as kids, didn't know, had those, like yellow rain boots, right? But also they weren't really clear which shoe went on which foot, right? Everybody can read, right?
Not relate to that.
You can't relate to ever putting your shoes on the wrong feet. Okay. Huh?
I'm sorry, I wore slippers.
Okay. So when you first got shoes, so way back in caveman times, they didn't have a left shoe and a right shoe.
They didn't have shoes at all.
Well,
barefooted,
foot covering.
like it should be.
No, after that.
Boom.
Neanderthal had, Utsi had really nice.
Rounded feet.
Huh?
Rounded feet. So
Barefoot.
He had really nice footwear. Yeah, go do a Google search. Utsi footwear.
Well, who made these shoes for these
Utsi.
people?
Utsi?
Utsi,
Bootsy.
the Iceman.
Bootsy the Iceman.
Oh.
Shoes.
Bootsy the Iceman shoes.
Okay, very they're made out of 10 different things.
Oh, that is
Let
awesome.
me see.
See them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spell it.
Okay.
Please spell it.
Otzi.
Otzi, right?
UT.
She said I spelled it.
Okay.
Spell it for me.
UTCY.
Okay, so back in those days, they didn't really have a left shoe and a right shoe. That didn't come along until about 300, 400 BC.
They had grass shoes.
Okay, but what was around the grass? Okay, and I think if you drill down more, it'll say like, well, there was this type of leather and this, and they had sinew from these things, and different kind of fur. Like his pants had like 3 or 4 different types of animal fur. Okay, so the David Phillips part of the story could be to tie into when you first became passionate about the business. So for Zappos, it could be, I remember my first pair of rain boots and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, if you found out the guy was from like Cleveland or someplace where they did have rain boots, not from Hawaii or Phoenix, where they don't have rain boots, but someplace like that, you do a David Phillips thing, or like Blaine Elkers, right? You just tell a story about the story for the purpose of bonding. You get them to like you, but you tie it into getting them, why do you want to work here? Why are you passionate about shoes? So for you, Jimmy, it would be, let's say, before you did this, you had a foundational job that you wanted to learn how retail stores work that are in high-end clothing or whatever type of clothing you want. It'd be a good idea to go work someplace like that. That's why it's a very good idea for people that work for Bonanno. If you ever want to have a career in the restaurant business, if you say, I worked at Fifth Avenue Restaurant Group in this town, they're going to be, okay, cool. Okay, you learned someplace good. If you say, well, I went to the culinary thing at on Lake Mead. What's that called? The culinary thing?
Culinary Institute.
On Lake Mead. Okay, I worked there. Anybody good's going to say pass. Because they don't teach you to be somebody good. So the plan is primarily a story as to why they should change the status quo and hire you. And it's just like David Phillips. I'm not David Phillips. It's just like Seth Godin. And it's the Simon Sinek thing of why they should change the status quo. And what was the tagline that Simon Sinek kept repeating?
It's not what you do, it's why you do.
People don't.
What you do, they buy what you do.
Yeah, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So this, how would that relate to you in an interview now? How would you take that statement and kind of shift it a little bit to fit into why should we hire you?
I believe what you believe.
Hmm?
No, I'm saying.
Well,
You get them to believe what you believe. I believe what you believe. And so you buy into, you know, whatever.
why I want to work here.
Why I want to work here.
Okay, why we need to change the status quo, because I'm passionate about this business. Okay, and this is where, as part of your story, you need to throw in that I'm interviewing with you and your 2 biggest competitors. Okay, so now Rudy, if you're interviewing me and I say something early on, you know, I love this business, I've loved it since I was a kid. I remember the first time I got my rain boots. This is the business I'm going to be in. So I'm interviewing with you and your 2 biggest competitors. Now, how do you feel when you hear me say that? You and your 2 biggest competitors.
I feel like, well, if we've already bonded correctly, I feel like I want to keep you with our company then.
Okay, let's say we haven't. Let's say you're neutral.
Then I would just have to look at what you bring to the table. And
Okay, but just the statement I said of I'm interviewing with you and your 2 biggest competitors.
right.
Who's that?
Okay.
Become competitive
But
with
wouldn't-
them, so they're more intrigued to be like,
Okay,
But wouldn't
So-
they also
Listen
say
to
that you
them.
don't really want to work? for
I want
us?
to work in this business. I'm interviewing with the 3 best companies that are in this business, in this
What
market.
you're doing.
Huh?
They think you're good at the job, it's your part.
Well, that maybe you really do want to work there. Yeah.
so what are the odds that you're gonna have 3 interviews with the 3 biggest companies all at the same time?
Well, it's not in the same day. It could be in
I
the
know
same
that's
2
what I'm
weeks.
saying, like, okay, so say like a restaurant, say you want to do a restaurant. What are the odds that you're gonna be Caesar's Entertainment, MGM, and Fifth Avenue is all hiring at the same time, and they're at the same time looking for stuff? So that's not really.
I
Well,
think,
you
no,
said
I
make
think
that
it's
up.
good.
You're saying to make.
Here's
it-
why. Here's why I think it's good. Because now when we get to later in the plan, one of the questions is, do I only want to interview for the job that I want? Or like if it's Caesar's or the Venetian, do I interview for whatever they have open? I want to be in this business, and my strategy is, if I get a job there, what can I do after 90 days? Transfer to a different department.
You better know who, can't just make that up. You better
Make what
know
up?
who those people are that you're
Which
gonna be
people?
interviewing with, the other companies, because what if they say, oh, really?
Okay,
to say
so
that.
so let's take a step back. Let's break it down. Let's say,
So we can't lie.
what's the job? What's the
We can't
job?
lie. So
No,
we can't-
yeah. So what's the job that we're
Then
talking
it's
about?
Promoter.
Huh?
So it's restaurant manager.
Okay, restaurant manager. Okay, Caesars, Fifth Avenue,
And Fifth Avenue.
and where? Venetian? MGM. Okay, those three places. So I want to be in the restaurant business in a major casino, because that's what the three have in common, right? And I want to be in management. Now, back up here, I might say, well, there's things I need to do before I become a manager, or maybe not, right? So now I go look at, what is MGM, what is Caesars, what is Fifth Avenue hiring for? Is that hard to find out?
No.
No,
Google it.
it's not hard to find out. Now, let's say I find out that at Caesars, the only opening they have right now is for the guy who picks up the litter attendant. Porter? Okay, let's say they have that. Now let's say, okay, I really want to be in restaurant management. I would really like to work at Caesars. They don't have an opening right now in restaurant management at Caesars. But one strategy I could have is called the camel getting its nose under the tent. Just get me a job at Caesars. Because
You really want
I want to work in a restaurant at Caesars. Because that's a good career thing.
Right.
But they don't have that, to Glenn's point. They don't have it, but they have something. And so one thing could be, just get me in at Caesars, and then I'll work my way across. Okay? So if that's the strategy,
Then you're screwed.
no, you're not screwed.
That ain't happening.
Because here's when I go into my interview. I go in and I say to the guy who's interviewing me for this job here, which he knows is not going to be a 20-year career for anybody. So I don't know how they do it at Caesars, but at the Venetian, first you have to have the interview with HR, then you get to have the interview with the department person.
I'll see.
At Caesars? Okay. So at Caesars, I go in now and I'm talking to the guy who does the garbage pickup, right? And I have to sell myself on what?
Garbage pickup.
No.
No?
You really want to work at Caesars?
Yeah, that's what I want. I am only willing to do garbage pickup temporarily, but I'm an asset for Caesars. And as long as I'm doing the job that, if I'm working for you, I'm going to be the best guy that there is. Now, the guy might not want to hire you.
Because he knows
But
you're not staying.
Well,
You know,
okay,
so
so
what's
here's
that
the, okay,
because
so let me relate that to a law school. A lot of guys that are in law school have a job as a bartender. Do you think they have trouble getting hired as bartenders?
No, because they get a big influx of people coming and
No,
going.
not necessarily. It's not really hard if you're going to law school to get a job as a bartender, at least in San Diego, okay? They know you're not staying. But they do know while you're there, you're going to be the best bartender they have. Because you're smart, you're articulate, you have a good memory, and you get the people only go to bars because they want to, and so you have to entertain them. And it's actually, when you're going to law school, being a bartender at night is really fulfilling because it's kind of a balance to what it's like when you're in law school.
So were you a bartender?
No, I had a jukebox business, so I had jukeboxes in bars. So I would see guys that I went to law school with. That would be one way I would get my jukebox at the bar. But so if you persuade the guy, yeah, I'm not going to be here forever, but as long as I'm here, I'm going to be the best guy you have. If the guy got up in his rank because people at Caesars like him and he's a company man, I would not say you're going to be dismissed out of hand. And if you really you can also have a strategy, I would say, to use that to, okay, well, there's no opening for what I want at Caesars. There's this other opening here, but can I use that? Can I use the opening at Caesars to help me get the job I want at MGM? Because they do have a job at MGM. But could I say to the guy at MGM, well, one reason to hire me is I'm interviewing at Caesars, and yeah, you know what? Right now, it's not for this same job. It's for a slightly different job. But I have enough confidence in myself. I know if I get in at Caesars,
You'll get where you want.
I'm going to eventually get to where I want. Now, how would a guy maybe feel? Manipulated, right? Using Glenn's word, manipulated. No, because I'm being honest. I'm telling him up front.
Hey, I'm all for that part.
Okay, the manipulation. Okay, so that could be part of the strategy. Is to Glenn's point. Yeah, they don't. Fifth Avenue is always hiring good people. They're always hiring good people. If you get in a thing with Linda and she believes you are somebody that's good, they will find a place and they'll put you on the schedule. They will absolutely do that.
When does she start at?
And I would say any good employer, if you get to the right person, the person who has authority, any good employer, if they see somebody good, they're going to find a way to hire that person. Because they're not going to go, a good company isn't going to go broke by hiring one extra person that they don't really need. But Glenn brings up another really good point here indirectly, or reminds me of a very good point. When you are in the interview, you have to watch out for mediocre people who act as gatekeepers.
Oh, yeah?
Okay. So with our business, we used to be a nonprofit school. It was really hard in Nevada, being a licensed post-secondary school in Nevada, because it's very small, and the people who run schools in Nevada, post-secondary schools, think it's their school. That's kind of how the law is written. And they decide if they're going to let you run their school. And in California, you pay your fees, you do your stuff. We don't care if you fail. So in California and LA, we competed with 600 schools in LA County. Massage schools, poker schools, you know, all kinds of post-secondary schools. Bartending, all kinds of schools. In the state of Nevada, we competed with 90 in the whole state. But in the state of Nevada, they think it's their school and they act as they're mediocre people. They get paid like $30,000 a year for these jobs. And they're basically mediocre people and they act like gatekeepers. Are we going to let you in? And some of the problems here is if you say the word California, a lot of mediocre people will immediately say, what? Anybody know? Yeah, we're not in California. And boom, you just unbonded. Okay. Yeah. Okay, now I know I don't like you. Because you're trying to use California against us. We're not the stepchild. So you got to be aware and wary of mediocre people who feel they are gatekeepers. So it's a little bit beyond the scope of our discussion today of how do you get somebody who's a mediocre person who feels that they need to be a gatekeeper. That's beyond our scope today, but just be wary of mediocre people who think that they need to be a gatekeeper, and their real job is to keep you out, not try to find the good people to let in. So just quickly moving forward through this so we can go to mind map. So we have our plan. The plan is two parts. One is the story, and the other part is sort of what the issue Glenn raised is, how do you get these interviews packed together? Because it doesn't really work if you're in an interview and you say, I'm trying to get an interview over here. I'm trying to get an interview with your two biggest competitors. Now, it could also be the case that you can't get an interview with the top three. Let's say on your thing, who would be number 4?
Win.
Okay, say Win. So you say, well, blah, 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 story. I'm going to interview with you and 2 of your top 3 competitors and the win. Because these guys didn't have any openings. I would have interviewed with them, but I couldn't get anything in this period of time. There's no openings there right now. So but again, you're trying to do what? By saying,
Make yourself appealing.
yeah, make yourself more customized. So they're not just thinking in terms of, do we want you? They're also thinking in terms of,
They want them not to have.
yeah, do we want to take a chance that you go over there and you're really good for them? Just a little more leverage. Okay, so that's the second thing on the plan. That's per Glenn's point. This getting the appointments in a period of time could be difficult. So what's the solution to that?
Lie.
Prepare early.
No, that's
Prepare early. You know, don't wait till the end of your plan to say, okay, now I'm going to start trying to set up interviews. You know, if you think your plan is going to take 2 weeks, at the end of the first week, you might start setting up your appointment for a week or 2 weeks out. You might not have that luxury. But again, on a proactive plan, you don't really care if they're hiring or not. You want to work in that field for that company. So you got to be prepared to do the camel with its nose under the tent. Okay, so execute. And here you have to rely upon your calendar. Don't keep these things in mind. In fact, you should have, okay, here's the day I want this part done. Here's when I want this done. Here's when I want that done. Your calendar should be on a startup page on Chrome. So when you launch Chrome, what happens?
Yours comes up.
The calendar comes up and it has your deadlines in there. You can see a week view and you can say, okay, well, Wednesday I have to have this done. I got to get ready for it. By the way, here's an interesting thing. Are you looking at the Google Plus still or no?
Yeah, I have it for like a week or so.
Okay, so something got published, I think Sunday, maybe it was Saturday, about why vision boards are bad.
I haven't read that. No, I saw you link to it. It was a while ago though.
Well, maybe it was again, why are vision boards bad? They're really, really bad. The way they are used. So what is a vision board, Rudy?
It's a board where you put up basically your hopes or what you want to accomplish and stuff like that to help in goal setting, achieve
Yeah.
goals and stuff like that.
So they put some people in an fMRI machine to see what effect it had on their brain when they had a vision board. And here's what they found. One thing we know about the brain is the brain doesn't know what's real or not real. So when you create a vision board that says Lamborghini, Ferrari, on my own private island, all that, your brain starts feeling good about the thought of those things. Okay? You don't have those things, but you feel good about it. You're not driven to get it. So the story goes on to say what you need to do is your vision board needs to include the things you need to do to get it, like study, like work, like the yeah.
I call mine an action board.
Okay, but does it have the result on there? Or does it have the stuff you need to do to get there?
Both.
Okay. So if you take off the result thing, and again, because the finding in this was, if you put the results on there, your brain doesn't know you don't have them. And it just releases neurotransmitters to make you feel good.
What about the long?
I think that's going down to mediocre on your thing now.
Oh, man.
So, so vision boards are dangerous unless you have them as to the steps, the things that you need to do. So on this one, the thing I read, it said, have in there that you need to study. Like if you need to, you know, in order to get what you want, you need to do this, but to do that, you need to study. Focus on those things. Okay, so the calendar could sort of be like a vision board in the way you should use a vision board. And these are the things I need to do to get to where I want to be. Now, I think that, just speaking about vision boards, I think that Jordan Peterson would take the approach of what regarding a vision board, would you say, Glenn? What should be on the vision board? Think about Glenn or Jordan Peterson. The things you're afraid of. Okay, the things you want to run away from, to remind you of the hell that's looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, the hell is not aggressive.
Or like, you know, when he's talking about, did you see the one on rats in a maze about the cat scent? Okay, so that fear was a far more motivator to get through the maze than cheese.
Someone said that when they left prison, they framed their prison clothes and put it in their room behind their door, so they never forgot where they came from and they never wanted to go back there.
Okay,
And that was like motivation, like every time they were like thinking of doing something,
okay.
they were like,
Okay.
oh, no, I don't.
So that would be kind of a Jordan Peterson, there's that hell thing back there. So, okay, so execute the plan, and then step 6, have a foundational job
Oh, you busy?
till you get the one that you want. So if you want to be an actor, what do most actors do before they're actors? Before they get their thing? Yeah, they work in restaurants.
Flexible.
Huh?
Flexible schedule.
Flexible schedule, okay, that's one reason, right? Usually walking distance, very close to where they live.
So they can do different characters, so they can practice.
Right. Okay. So that would be a foundational job. It's helping them prepare for the job they really want, and they can quit anytime. And you don't have a lot of training. So that's what we want to do. And so that's what we're going to be talking about this week. There is a